Hey guys, it's Sunny and welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are doing super well. Today we're going to talk about genetics and epigenetics and their effects on length retention and hair growth. Now we're going to talk about how genetics affects hair growth. First and foremost, your DNA, it's like your body's personal blueprint on how to grow hair or how to do whatever process that your body is going to be doing. But for this video, we're focusing on growing hair. Your genes can actually decide how many follicles you have, how thick each strand is, how fast your hair grows, and how long your hair grows before shedding. And before I move any further, I just want to make sure that you know that genes is not the same as DNA. Gene is a specific segment of DNA. You know, you have the gene for eye color or the genes for eye color, the genes for skin color. It's like a specific segment of your DNA. The DNA is the whole thing, the gene is a specific part of it. The hair growth cycle is genetically programmed, and what that means is your genetics can determine how quickly or how slowly this cycle is completed. This cycle has three different stages. We have anagen, this is the growth phase, so the hair is actively growing. We have catagen, this is the transition phase, so the growth is slowing down but it's not completely stopped as yet. In telogen, this is the resting phase, this is when growth stops. Your hair is not growing but it's not falling out as yet. And then we have the last and final stage, exogen. This is when your hair falls out of your scalp. This is shedding. This is a normal process that everyone goes through. One of the most important phase for us that are trying to grow our hair is the anagen phase, the active growth phase. How long this phase lasts is mostly genetics. You can't really do anything about that. Some people may have an anagen phase that lasts 2 to 3 years. Another person may have 6 to 8 years. This difference can explain why a person's hair may stop growing at their shoulders while another person's hair may stop growing at hip length or waist length, even though they use the same routine and it's the same amount of time. And before I move on, I just want to say your curl pattern has nothing to do with this process. It has nothing to do with how long your hair stays in the anagen phase. So when I see people saying the only reason why someone's hair grows is because they have good hair, which basically means a looser curl pattern has nothing to do with this. Curl pattern may have an effect on how you retain length, but it has nothing to do with how long your hair stays in the growth phase. Now I want to talk about specific genes that may be involved in hair growth. According to the National Library of Medicine and PubMed Central, the FGF5 gene is a gene that basically tells your hair when to stop growing. So greater activity of this gene means a shorter growth phase, and lesser activity of this gene means a longer growth phase. Now we're going to discuss a very important topic, and it is epigenetics. According to the AI overview on Google, epigenetics is the study of how environmental factors can influence how your genes are expressed, but they don't change the underlying DNA sequence. I know that may seem very complicated, but basically what it's saying is we have these same genes, but we're having different outcomes from these genes because of certain environmental factors. For example, your genes may say that you should have high density hair, but because of things that you're doing, for example, you're wearing really tight braids, you have low density hair instead of high density hair. So it's really simple. It doesn't change your DNA, but instead it controls which genes are turned on or off. When a gene is turned on, it means that we are creating a product or we're doing what we should do. When a gene is turned off, that means we're not creating a product or we're not doing what we should do. Another thing that epigenetics determines is how active certain genes are. Remember I brought up the FGF5 gene? I want to use this gene to explain how epigenetics may determine how active a gene is. Say for example, we have an environmental factor that increases the activity of the FGF5 gene. What's going to happen is we're going to have a shorter growth phase. If we have an environmental factor that decreases the activity of the FGF5 gene, we're going to have a longer growth phase. I don't know if this is the best gene to really explain how epigenetics work, but this gene really shows us how epigenetics can impact how active or how inactive the gene is. Okay, since we've covered what epigenetics is on the surface, now we can go into what it does inside the hair follicles. So the hair follicles, they have stem cells that restart each growth cycle. And these stem cells, what they do is they generate new hair, skin, and I think sebaceous glands, so sebum and stuff. What epigenetics does is it can affect how active those stem cells are. And we know what can happen if we have inactive stem cells inside our hair follicles. Less growth. Also, it can affect how well the follicles re-enter the growth phase. If follicles aren't entering the growth phase at a good rate, we will have less hair growth. And lastly, it can affect how follicles respond to things such as aging, stress, and inflammation. Something to note is that two people with similar genetics, for example, identical twins, they can still have different hair outcomes because of things like chronic stress, hormonal changes, their age, or their level of inflammation. Now we're going to go into the final section of the video, which is hair growth versus length retention. Hair growth is basically what happens at the scalp, and this is controlled by genetics and hormones, and also how well our follicle is producing new cells. And something important to note is that once your hair leaves your scalp, it does not grow, because hair growth happens at the scalp rather than the ends of the hair, and hair is made of dead keratin. Now we're going to go into length retention, and this is what happens after your hair grows. So once your hair leaves the scalp, what I want you to know is that it no longer repairs itself. It can break, it can split, and it can wear down, and this damage can lead to loss of length. Some things that can affect length retention are tight styling, for example, the braids, rough detangling, heat styling, chemical processing, and dryness. A key thing that I want you to know is that some people can have great hair growth, but the issue is in their length retention. Their length retention skills are so poor, you don't even see that their hair is actually growing. And I'm going to move on to how curl pattern may impact length retention. Remember I said that curl pattern doesn't determine whether your hair stays in the growth phase long or not, but I want to show you how it may impact length retention. So for example, a person with a looser curl pattern, for example 3C hair versus a person with 4C hair. Detangling 3C hair is simpler than detangling 4C hair. And that's just a fact. The same way detangling 1C hair is much easier than detangling 2C hair, which is much easier than detangling 3C hair, which is much easier than detangling 4C hair. And that's okay. But yeah, that's my point. So in terms of length retention, if a person doesn't know how to detangle their hair, that person might have a disadvantage, especially if their hair is on the coilier side, because it's naturally harder to detangle because it coils more. Right now, I just want to make a correction to a word that I've been using, and it's hard. I don't want to say it's hard as if, oh, it's the hardest thing in the world to do. What I mean is it takes a lot more effort when you're trying to detangle a hair that has tighter coils than one that doesn't. And the truth is, most of us with coilier hair types, we don't really know how to take care of our hair. People with looser hair types, because the hair industry has been mostly targeted towards them, they have more knowledge on how to take care of their hair than we. So that's an issue that a person with a tighter coil might have, and that might not be a problem for someone with a looser curl pattern. So to sum it up, curl pattern does not impact how fast your hair grows or how long your hair stays in the anagen phase, the active growth phase. The only thing that does that is your genetics. And while curl pattern is genetic, it has nothing to do with how fast your hair will grow. It can play a role in length retention, but not always, because there are some people with looser curl pattern that have very poor length retention and they aren't retaining anything. The same way there are people with tighter curls that have poor retention and they aren't retaining anything also. So it all depends on who has the faster growth rate and the good length retention strategy. Also, the more coily your hair is, the less easily it is for sebum to travel on your hair. Therefore, you can have drier hair more often than a person that has a looser curl pattern, leading to more breakage if you don't know how to moisturize your hair or properly detangle your hair. So this is the only way I think curl pattern can determine if you show more length versus if you don't show as much. So that's the only difference I can see with a person with a looser curl pattern versus a person with a tighter curl pattern. Because I do think even though someone may have a looser curl pattern, a person with a tighter curl pattern can have a faster growth rate than that person with a looser curl pattern. But the only thing that will make that person with the looser curl pattern have more length retention is because their hair is easier to detangle. But you with the 4C here, or the type 4 here, can still retain as much length, even more, but you just have to know how to adapt to your hair. But yes, that is it for this video today, or this week. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I have one more video in this series. Is it one more? Yes, I have one more video in this series. I hope that you guys come back tomorrow and have a very beautiful day. Bye.